Howdy, my name is Nonat, and welcome to the second installment of Advanced Archetypes. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Last time we covered the first 6 archetypes in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Advanced Player's Guide, and in today's episode, we're going to be covering the next 6. And this one's going to be really long. There's a lot to cover with these archetypes, because honestly, they're all really complicated, and we have 2 in this video that are multiple pages long. So I say we just jump right into it. Also, this video is a test, and I would love to hear from you guys down in the comments. I found my old Blue Yeti microphone versus my microphone that I've been using. The one I've been using is a dynamic microphone, which tends to have a little bit of a hiss and a little bit less depth to the quality. Let me know if you like this better or worse in the comments, and it'll help me decide what I want to do going further. But without further ado, we're going to be jumping right into the first archetype of the day, the Blessed One. Now, the Blessed One is an archetype that, upon first reading it, when I first got my APG and skimming through it, I was really bored with it. I didn't think it was amazing and that had that much potential, but the more I've read about it and how some certain functions work, the more I realize it's actually insane. Let's start by looking at the Blessed One dedication. The dedication is plain and simple. You gain the Lay on Hands devotion spell and a focus point. That's it. That's all you get. But if you're unaware, like I was, focus points in Pathfinder 2nd Edition are a little interesting. If you gain focus points from different sources, they still count towards the same focus pool. And so let's say you are a wizard with 1 focus point at level 1 to cast your school spell. Well, when you level up to level 2, if you happen to take this dedication and gain Lay on Hands and a focus pool, that increases your focus point to 2, and unlike spell slots, which are only used to cast certain spells, focus points can be used on whatever you want. So I'll talk about this more in my final thoughts, but this, just the dedication granting you a focus point, is absolutely incredible. And also, Lay on Hands isn't bad to have, being able to heal 6 hit points per 2 levels, not terrible. And right away at level 4, we can already look at Blessed Sacrifice, which is basically the same as the dedication. It gives you another focus point, as well as the Protector's Sacrifice focus spell. This is a great focus spell if you're looking to play a sort of tanky support, not so much healing, but taking other people's damage. Whenever you cast this focus spell, you basically attach yourself to a party member, and whenever they take damage, you reduce it by a certain amount and take it instead. This is really good, as even at level 4, when you first get this, you'll be reducing the damage they take by, I believe, 6 per hit, and you will take that 6. Now, there are some interesting parts of this in that your personal resistances, weaknesses, immunities do not apply. If your friend takes 10 fire damage while you have them protected, then they'll only take 4 fire damage, and you will just take 6 damage. It doesn't matter if you're immune to fire, resistant to fire. It also doesn't matter if you're weak to fire. You just lose 6 hit points to prevent them from losing 6 hit points. This also means things like diseases and poisons cannot be afflicted to you from taking the damage. If your ally gets attacked by a diseased wolf, they still have to make a fortitude save, but when you take the damage for them, that disease does not also afflict you. You don't have to make any saves. Now, the level 8 feature Blessed Spell is kind of hilarious, but I'll get to that. At its core, it's fine. You spend an action to effectively upgrade your next spell on an ally. So if you're gonna cast Heal on an ally, you can activate Blessed Spell first, and then when you cast that heal, you can also remove a harmful condition from your ally, but only a condition that could be removed by the Mercy feat, which is a prerequisite for Blessed Spell. And this is where I lose a little bit of interest in the Blessed One. I'll get more into it again in my final thoughts, but a lot of its features work off of the Mercy feats, which I believe are available to champions or clerics. I don't remember which. But there are a lot of different feats which augment Mercy, and Blessed Spell is only as good as the number of Mercy feats you have. So if you're going full-on support, yeah, upgrading your Mercy is really, really good, but you have to sacrifice a lot of class feats to get that kind of support. But at its core, Mercy, and by extension Blessed Spell, can remove any paralysis effect or fear effect. Now, my favorite part of this little feature is the exact wording of its effect. If your next action is to cast a spell from a spell slot, and that spell targets only a single ally, you can also attempt to remove a harmful condition from that ally. So yeah, you would activate this and then 2-action heal someone. Fantastic. But it doesn't say the spell has to be helpful. And this means that that wizard with the Blessed One dedication can walk up to you, activate Blessed Spell, and slap you on the back with Shocking Grasp to remove a harmful condition from you, as well as deal 2d12 points of damage. Shock therapy! And the final level 12 feat, Blessed Denial, is actually insane. As a reaction, if an ally within 30 feet would become frightened, drained, enfeebled, stupefied, or best of all, sickened, as a reaction, you can reduce the value they would be afflicted with by 1. So if they were going to achieve any of those conditions at stage 1, you just prevent it from happening. Especially on Sickened, that is insane. I don't know why they drew the line at Clumsy. It works on Enfeebled and Stupefied. I don't know why they wouldn't let it reduce Clumsy either, but this is nuts. You don't need any of the other feats from this archetype. So if you just want to take the dedication and then grab this at level 12, that is just a fantastic thing to have in your back pocket. Doesn't matter what class you are primarily, there are no other prerequisites for this level 12 feat. Especially if you're a class that doesn't have a lot of reactions, like a wizard, then this is an amazing reaction to have in your back pocket. The Blessed One also gets a boatload of additional feats, but like I said, they're pretty much all the feats that augment and improve the Mercy feature. The additional feats are Accelerating Touch, Mercy, Invigorating Mercy, Greater Mercy, Elucidating Mercy, Elucidating Mercy, Resilient Touch, Affliction Mercy, Amplifying Touch, and Rejuvenating Touch. So these all, buff Mercy at... They basically add more conditions that Mercy can remove, as well as upgrade Lay on Hands, which is part of what Mercy also affects your Lay on Hands. So overall, this archetype is an absolute powerhouse. It grants healing, condition control, condition prevention, and in my opinion, the best part, additional focus points that can be spent on your primary class's focus spells. Even if you don't plan to use Protector's Sacrifice or Lay on Hands, now, with this archetype, any caster can now have, any focus point class, even a monk, can now have 3 focus points by level 4. Especially for something like a Universalist Wizard, where in their core class, they get a max of 2 focus points as a Universalist. At level 8, they can now have 3 at level 4. This is absolutely insane. Just recently in a one-shot, I played a Universalist Wizard at level 4. I didn't take Blessed Sacrifice at level 4, I took Bespell Weapon, but even at level 4, being able to use Hand of the Apprentice, the focus spell, twice in a round, honestly, if you really want to, it's only 1 action, basically per encounter, is really freaking powerful. Like, it's an early game power spike that obviously later in the game won't matter as much, but it's so worth it. Especially if you don't plan to take any other archetypes, just dipping into this at level 2 to get a focus point early on is totally worth it. And even just beyond that, being able to have healing, being able to have, condition prevention and control, it's all just an amazing package. Plus, now you can put Lay on Hands on your Divine Sorcerer and get even more healing. Because let's face it, Angelic Halo as a focus spell, a little bit weaker than Lay on Hands. Next up is the Bounty Hunter. I have some thoughts on this one, but let's go through it first. Starting off with the Dedication. In order to take this dedication, you do need to be at least trained in survival, and it grants the Hunt Prey action similar to the Ranger, although it actually is a little bit more powerful than the Ranger's Hunt Prey. In addition to the normal benefits of Hunt Prey, +2 to seek it, +2 to track it, you also get +2 to gather information about your prey. On top of this, you don't need to be able to see or hear it to hunt it, but you do have to have heard about it from some kind of bounty board or a quest. So if the barkeep says there's a hobgoblin living outside town that's been attacking and ransacking my alcohol shed, I need you to take care of it, the bounty hunter can say, I got this, and already have it hunted. So this is nice because once you get into combat with your prey, it's already hunted. You don't need to spend another action, and it remains hunted until it's either killed or you switch to a different prey. It doesn't wear off. Also, if you take this dedication as a ranger and you already had hunt prey from your class feature, you actually get a bump to your survival, making you an expert at level 2, and your hunt prey is upgraded so that you get the +2 to gather information about your target and start hunting it right when you see it on a bounty board. Tools of the trade is super simple and really flavorful, which I like. You become trained in the sap, the bola, and the whip. And in addition, you don't take a penalty to dealing non-lethal damage with any weapon. And in my opinion, that's the main reason to take this. You know, the sap, whip, and bola, those are cool. And the bola's brand new, so I actually need to look into what that does. I'm guessing it immobilizes or something, or slows maybe. But yeah, taking no penalty when dealing non-lethal damage, even if weapons don't have the non-lethal trait, is huge. And it's, again, very flavorful, because the bounty hunter is all about taking people alive and turning them in for reward. It's a really, really cool concept that I think plays out very well with this feat. Posse is okay. It's level 4 feat as well, and you can instruct up to 5 creatures to help you track your prey, and it's sort of a buff for your party. They all get +1 to the things you get for hunt prey, so while you get +2 to seek, track, and gather information, everyone you instruct gets a +1 to seek, track, and gather information. It's a good backup if you don't trust your own rolls, as well as get your party involved on hunting your target. It's just a little bit weak, but it's not terrible, and the buff does last as long as they're with you, unless they walk away from you for more than an hour or so. So it's good, it's great if you plan to split up for an hour and everyone goes search their own way. I mean, a +1 to anything is never bad. I just don't know if it's worth a class feat. Keep pace is your classic martial sticky reaction. If you're within melee range of your target and they take a stride action, you can use your reaction to move along with them up to your speed. Super simple, super sticky, super useful. And finally, the 8th level feat, Opportunistic Grapple, is actually really cool. If your prey is in melee range and they critically fail their attack on you, you can make an athletics check to grapple them just as a reaction. And that's amazing. Not just grabbing, but grappling. Having the opportunity, if you crit succeed, to fully restrain your target as a reaction is really, really good. And the bounty hunter only gets 1 additional feat. At 14th level, they get the ranger's double prey, which just means you can hunt 2 prey at once. So my final thoughts are that it's a very flavorful archetype. It's not super powerful, but it can fit into the right campaign, especially for quests that want their target taken alive. The bounty hunter is excellent at that. With the tools of the trade feat, you could use a 1d12 great axe as non-lethal damage at no penalty. It's really, really good, and Opportunistic Grapple is fantastic. Obviously, the best class this is for would be the Ranger. As a Ranger who can hunt their prey days ahead of time is very powerful. Any Ranger that can hunt their prey before combat begins is instantly a large buff. Because, usually a Ranger will have to spend their first action hunting prey. So, just taking the Bounty Hunter dedication almost gets you a free action in combat so long as you're fighting something that you're tracking. So it's really not bad. Like I said, it's not as powerful as something like the Blessed One, but it still has its own merits, and it's not a bad choice for anyone. Next up is the Cavalier, and the Cavalier is interesting, I suppose. Let's start with the dedication. You have to be trained in either nature or society, either or, and you gain an animal companion. It's basically the same as the Beastmaster from the last video. You gain an animal companion, but the companion has to have the mount ability. They also have to be at least 1 size larger than you. So typically you're going to have to take like a horse or a riding drake. If your character is small, you can take a companion that starts small and make them medium. But again, they have to have the mount trait. Now, before we go any further, I have to explain the Cavalier pledge, which is really kind of confusing and very up for interpretation. When you pick the Cavalier dedication, you also pledge to something, whether it be a deity, or a kingdom, or a druid order, or just an ideal. Like I said, it's very loosey-goosey. Whatever you pledge to is what you are a Cavalier for. You could just be a Cavalier of freedom and just pledge yourself to freedom and the pursuit of freedom for all. And that would work. And then you have to work with your GM, because similar to like a cleric or a champion, your pledge comes with edicts and anathema. Edicts you must live by, and anathema you cannot commit. So if you pledge to something obscure like freedom, it might be, okay, you always have to work to free those enslaved, and you can never abuse or trap someone who doesn't want to be with you. And similar to those, for some reason, even though the Cavalier at its core is not a magical class, if you break your anathema, you lose all of the benefits you gain from the Cavalier archetype. Howdy y'all, Future Nonad here, and I'm here to correct a mistake I make before I have to fix it in the comments for once. I'm getting better. I was stupid here, I was wrong, I didn't fully understand the pledge system when I first read it. Pledging is optional. It is not something that all Cavaliers have to take. All the pledge does is gives you access to the banner, which is an uncommon feat, and the only way to take it is to have the pledge. And if you break the anathema of your pledge, like I talked about earlier, you only lose the banner ability. And you can only get that back if you perform the atonement ritual. So as of right now, the only feat related to pledges is the Cavalier's banner, and it is the only thing you lose should you break your pledge's anathema. Cool? Cool. Back to me being an idiot. Moving on to the level 4 Cavalier's banner, and as long as you have it on you, yourself and all allies within 30 feet gain a +1 bonus to will saves and DCs against fear effects. It's really good because it's a passive effect, but it does come with a negative, which I don't know why these negatives need to exist. I feel like a passive +1 against fear effects isn't so powerful that it needs a negative, but if your banner is ever dropped, destroyed, lost, etc., all of your allies become frightened 1. So if you ever lose that banner, your entire team takes a -1 to everything for 1 round. That is such a heavy negative. I know the odds of you losing your banner aren't huge, but why? Why the fright? And I understand it's to represent lowered morale, but I feel like the bonus only against fear effects is not enough to warrant that huge negative. The second level 4 feat is Cavalier's Charge, which is your standard move twice, attack once, except you can only do this while on your Cavalier mount, and you have your mount move twice, and you can strike anywhere along that movement, but you do get a +1 to hit, which doesn't usually come with these, so that's pretty good. So for 2 actions, you get to move twice and attack at +1. Pretty solid stuff. Impressive Mount is your classic, your animal companion matures. And you can also, even if you don't spend an action to command your mount that turn, your mount can still take a stride or strike action for free. The fourth level 4 feat, the Cavalier gets a lot of level 4 feats for some reason, is Quick Mount. For 1 action, you are able to mount your animal companion as well as order it. Now, it's not quite apparent reading through here, so let me know in the comments if you can confirm this, but it says, in 1 action, you mount the creature and command an animal to issue it an order of your choice. Now, usually when you command an animal, it does get 2 actions, so I don't know if it still gets both of its actions, or if issue it an order of your choice means 1 action. I'm assuming it's 2, because it doesn't say, I feel like if it was 1 action, it would say your animal companion can then take 1 action or something like that. Just the way it's worded sounds like an order, a single order, but I don't think that's how it works. I think it still gets both actions, which for 1 action, to mount and command an animal, fantastic action economy. At level 6, the Cavalier gets two options, and they're both pretty similar. The first one is a reaction called Defend Mount, and effectively, if an attacker is attacking your mount, you can use your reaction to take the attack instead. That means you switch it to attack your armor class, and if it still hits, you take the damage and your mount takes nothing. Really solid stuff if you are healthy and your mount is getting beaten up. So it's sort of a good way to really almost expand your hit point pool if enemies are attacking your mount instead of yourself. Let your mount lose some health and then start taking the hits for your mount. Mounted Shield at level 6 is similar, but sort of in a different light. Now, when you raise a shield, that +2 armor class also applies to your mount. In addition to this, you can also shield block for your mount. So if your mount gets attacked while you have a shield raised, you can still shield block to reduce the damage your mount takes. It still follows the same shield block rules, the shield still takes damage and everything. Effectively, you can shield block for your animal companion so long as you're mounted. Level 8's Incredible Mount, we've seen this all before, it becomes Nimble or Savage. Trampling Charge, in my opinion, is sort of the best ability that the Cavalier gets, although that's up for debate. It's a level 10 feat for 3 actions. Your mount gets to make 2 stride actions, so it moves up to double its movement speed, and then it can also move through the squares of any creature smaller than itself. At the end of the movement, every single creature that your mount moved through takes damage equal to your mount's leg strike, which I believe every mount companion does have a legs attack. So it deals that much damage to all of them, and they all make a basic reflex save. It's not an attack roll, which means they can take double damage if they crit fail their basic reflex save. As well as the double damage on a critical failure, they also become flat-footed until the end of your next turn. So this is a very solid maneuver. I do believe the difficult terrain of moving through creatures does still apply to this, though. So keep that in mind, that even if the creature is one size smaller than your mount, the square they are on still counts as difficult terrain, so it will be 10 feet instead of 5 to move through a creature. Unseat is personally not something I think needed to be a feat, as a game master, this is something I would allow anybody to do with a jousting weapon on a mount. Unseat for 1 action, you make a strike against a different mounted opponent, and make an athletics check against their fortitude DC. If they fail, they're knocked off their mount, and if they crit fail, they land prone. Personally, I don't like that this is a feat. I would have liked this to just be an aspect of jousting weapons, and honestly, as a GM, I would let my player do this even if they didn't have the unseat feat. Like, I would let them do this at 2nd level, so long as they had a jousting weapon. If they have a longsword, no, it's not going to work. But if you have, a lance on your horse, I think I would let the player joust. It's not such an overpowered feature. I don't know. Personally, I don't like that this is a feat. I wish this was just a standard action. Specialized Mount. We know what this means by now. You become specialized. You take a specialized aspect. You can pick it up to 3 times. Moving on. Finally, Legendary Rider at level 20 is actually kind of insane. It's similar to the level 20 fighter feat, which is they're always quickened, but the fighter can only stride or strike with the extra action. The Legendary Rider, while mounted, is permanently quickened, but they can only use this action to command an animal. So effectively, they now get 5 actions per turn. 2 for their mount and 3 for themselves. This is really, really strong. Granted, level 20, there's stronger stuff at level 20, and if it came at like level 18, I think it could actually be cooler, but still, getting the extra actions from the free command an animal is really solid. My final thoughts on the Cavalier is that it definitely has a ton of different feats, and luckily, most of them don't have prerequisites other than the dedication. So you can pick and choose what you want from this dedication. I don't think anyone would take every feat from the Cavalier. I think it sort of helps you design a mounted combat style. If you want to be defensive, you can take, mounted shield and defend mounts. I think anyone would take quick mount to get up on faster. And so it's got some good options, and I like that there's now the opportunity to effectively play a mounted fighter. I just think some of these things are a bit too situational, especially things like upseat. I don't know. It's not my favorite archetype. It's definitely for a specific type of person, and I'm sure there are people out there who are ecstatic to have this archetype. And if that's what you want, go for it. More power to you. I think part of me also is just not the biggest fan of mounted combat. Also, any archetype that gives an animal companion is still really good. The Celebrity moving up next, starting with the Dedication. It grants you a +1 bonus to earn income if the difficulty level of the earn income check is a higher level than you. Weird, but kind of cool. So if basically you can attempt things that are one level higher than you, effectively without taking a penalty, I suppose. If it's one level higher, the DC will be about one higher and you get the +1, so it just makes you a little bit better at earning income. You also receive the Upstage reaction, which is weird. If a foe attempts a skill check and doesn't get a critical success, you can attempt a check using the same skill. And effectively, if you do better than them, you get a +1 bonus to attack rolls, perception checks, saving throws, and skill checks until the end of your next turn, which isn't bad. I'm just trying to think if you can always do this. Can you do this in combat? If someone attempts to intimidate your party, can you make the intimidation check as a reaction as well? I suppose so, like verbatim from the rules. That is how it would work. And then if you intimidate better, then you get the bonus. I don't know, it's a weird reaction, and I feel like it would be tough to make it work in context. I know what they're going for. I absolutely understand what they're going for. As long as you do better than your opponent, you get a +1 bonus to pretty much everything on your next turn. And that's the long and short of it. I'm going to move on just because this one's weird and I could talk about it for a long time. Never Tire is a reaction, and in order to even use this reaction, you need to be observed by at least 3 non-hostile entities, characters. Basically, if at any time you're being watched by 3 or more non-hostile characters and you would become fatigued, you can delay the effects of fatigued for 1 minute. You know, the show must go on, you keep performing even though you're exhausted, but you shrug off the exhaustion for 1 minute, and then either at the end of that minute or the second you're no longer being watched, you become fatigued. That's basically all it does. The fatigued effect, let's say it lasts 5 minutes, so you delay it for 1 minute, then the 5-minute duration begins. I suppose your allies, if they can see you, would work for this. So if you're in a party of 4 and your 3 allies can see you, which observed just means you're not hidden, you're not concealed, you're just there, then they know you're there. I suppose you can use this. So if something inflicts fatigued via a magical effect, you can delay it for 1 minute, which is good. I just know the fatigued condition is a little bit rare, and the most common way you'll get it is through traveling and lack of sleep, in which case delaying it for 1 minute isn't so big a deal. Mesmerizing Gaze at level 6 is 2 actions, and effectively you pick a target that can see you, and you make eye contact, and that target makes a will save. If they fail, they become fascinated with you until the end of your next turn. And really, that's it. What's worth noting about this is you can still do it again on the next turn. If they fail their will save, you can use this again to keep them fascinated with you. But if they ever succeed their check, or something takes a hostile action against them, they become immune to your gaze for 1 day. So effectively this means you can, keep doing it over and over and over again every turn until they succeed once. Command Attention is 1 action at level 10, and basically every creature in a 30-foot range looks at you. And then every creature looking at you automatically bumps their rolls against visual will saving throws up 1 stage. So if people fail a will saving throw against a visual effect, but you used this on your turn, they actually succeed. Or if they succeed, they critically succeed against these effects. And additionally, if a creature is trying to, if you've used this and they've been affected by it, and something like a Medusa tries to use a visual effect on a different party member, they have to make another will save, otherwise they use it on you. So it's great to command attention. This could be fun on like a tanky character like a champion, but overall, kind of an awkward ability. I also forgot to mention that the attention is strong enough that while the enemies and other creatures are looking at you, it's enough of a distraction that your allies can hide even if they don't have cover. So, my final thoughts on the celebrity is that I wish it was a skill archetype. Everything here definitely is decent, but not amazing. Similar to what I said about the fatigued condition, visual effects are not overly common. They're definitely more common than the fatigued effect, the condition, but visual effects are still very, very niche, and especially at lower levels. I will say at higher levels, they are definitely more common, but a lot of low-level effects are not usually visual. The best part of this whole archetype is absolutely mesmerizing gaze, but it's mostly useful outside of combat. In combat, the fascinated condition is incredibly weak. It's one of the weakest conditions is that it only penalizes perception checks and skill checks by -2 while fascinated, and they can't concentrate. This would be really useful against a spellcaster who needs to sustain a spell. So if you can mesmerize and gaze a spellcaster, they can no longer concentrate, and thus they will lose the spell they're sustaining. So that can be a very good use of it. And outside of combat, mesmerize and gaze is fantastic. If you need to sneak past a guard, and the celebrity walks up next to them and just mesmerize and gazes, the guard, can't look away as long as he keeps failing his will save, and your party can just sneak on past. But again, that's why I sort of wish this was a skill archetype, or at least some of these would be skill feats, because sacrificing class feats for some of these abilities are just not worth it. To sacrifice a class feat for the ability to stave off the fatigued condition for 1 minute, just not great in my opinion. Now the dandy, I'm a big fan of. The dedication does require trained in diplomacy, which is really easy to get, and it grants you a unique downtime activity, which we haven't seen yet in an archetype, Influence Rumor, which means you can spend 1 day of downtime to use diplomacy and manipulate an existing rumor however you want. Now, the larger the community, the higher the DC to succeed, whether it be a town or a city or a kingdom, but as long as you succeed the DC, you sway the rumor and manipulate it however you like, and that starts to sweep through the city. So this could be fantastic for manipulating a town from the inside, and I love it. It also grants you trained in deception and society. And if you were already trained in either of those, you become an expert instead. So at level 2, if you're already trained in diplomacy, deception, and society, you get the downtime activity as well as 2 free skill increases to your deception and society up to expert. I will mention that most of these, except for one, are skill feats. So you will get these at odd levels, even though they do have even level requirements. At level 4, you get Distracting Flattery. As a reaction, if your ally does anything which reduces the attitude of another character, you can make a deception check to cover for them and prevent this attitude loss. So if your ally says something or botches a check and the target is going to go from neutral to unhelpful, then you can use this reaction to roll a deception check against their will DC, and if you succeed, they stay at neutral. Now, if you fail, it does go down as normal, and worse, if you critically fail, it goes down even more. So it's very possible to make someone hostile this way, or ruin a contact if this goes horribly wrong. But it's just a cool reaction to be able to cover up for your ally's failure, or just low charisma score is a really cool feature. Also available at level 4 is Gossip Lore. Now this is not a skill feat, so you have to use a class feat to take this one, but it's basically the same as Bardic Lore. You become trained in Gossip Lore, which can be used to recall knowledge on anything, which is absolutely phenomenal. So Arcana, Occultism, Religion, Nature, anything like that, you can recall knowledge using Gossip Lore. Now, the only downside is that this cannot be increased like any other skill. It will stay at trained until you become legendary in society, at which point Gossip Lore will go up to expert, but it cannot be increased beyond expert. Now, a downside to this is that if you ever fail your recall knowledge check, you activate the skill feat Dubious Knowledge, which means you will get 2 pieces of information, one of which is true, one of which is false, and you will not be informed which one. So that can be very risky and somewhat detrimental to the party, depending on how it goes. At level 7, the Dandy can take fabricated connections, which is pretty useful. Effectively, when you earn income, make an impression, request, or subsist, you can roll deception instead of any other required skill. Now, these are limited. You can only use deception to make an impression or make a request once per day, and you can only use it to earn income or subsist once per week. So this is limited, but especially if your deception is already master at level 7, being able to use that for different skill checks is just incredibly powerful, and it's a skill feat. You don't have to sacrifice a class feat to do this. Fantastic stuff. The final Dandy feat, also available at level 7, is Party Crasher. If you're a master in society, you can get into any public formal event. It doesn't matter if you have no invitation. It doesn't matter if you're not supposed to be there. You just do it. As long as you have 1d4 hours before the event begins, you get inside. You either find a job in the kitchen, or as a bartender, or find a date, or find an invitation in the trash, and you find a way in. Now, this does have limits. It can't be used to get into secret gatherings, non-public gatherings, just family only, stuff like that. If it's not open to the public, you cannot get in. So my final thoughts here on the Dandy is that this is what I wish the Celebrity was. I kind of wish they were a combination. If they were one in the same, and it had sort of skill feats like the Celebrity, skill feats like the Dandy and class feats like the Celebrity as all part of the same archetype, I think that would have been cooler. Just make it 2 pages and be able to pick and choose how you want, or even take both as you level up. I think that would have been cool, but on its own, the Dandy is super useful. It has a cool balance of diplomacy, deception, and society, and honestly, you can frame your entire character around the Dandy archetype, and I love it. And the best part is that they're all skill feats. Except for Gossip Lore and the Dedication, you don't need to sacrifice any class feats for this. I probably will find myself using this a lot in long form campaigns if I ever get to play and not GM. I'm just kidding, I love GMing. And the final archetype for the day, and simultaneously one of the most complicated and simple, is the Dragon Disciple. Now, the Dedication is weird, as it has something I haven't seen on anything else. It's not a prerequisite, it's access, which I actually had to check out the glossary for this, but access is basically the same thing as a prerequisite. It's only on uncommon things, and can only be taken if you are what has access. So for the Dragon Disciple Dedication, the only characters who can take this dedication are Dragon Scale or Spell Scale Kobolds, Dragon Instinct Barbarians, and Draconic Bloodline Sorcerers. Nobody else can take this. There's no loopholes unless your GM lets you, which I think could still be kind of cool. But going forward, when you select this dedication, you pick a color of dragon, and you receive half of your level in damage resistance against the element damage type associated with your dragon. So if you pick green dragon, you gain half your level in resistance against poison damage. You also gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against sleep effects and paralysis effects, which is a really solid bonus. Now, a downside is if you are a Draconic Sorcerer, you already picked your color of dragon at character creation, and thus your Dragon Disciple Dedication must be to that same type of dragon. Level 4 Claws of the Dragon just gives you Dragon Claws. Your unarmed strikes become 1d6 slashing finesse weapons, and agile. Simple as that. You just get that unarmed strike, and if you're a Draconic Sorcerer, when you cast Dragon Claws, instead of the 1d4 slashing you normally do, you do the 1d6 from your real claws, and your resistance goes up at each spell level when it would normally go up. Level 4 Draconic Scent, you get a 30-foot range imprecise sense of smell. Solid. Dragon Arcana is pretty much only useful for kobold spellcasters. It cannot be taken by barbarians, and Draconic Sorcerers it would have no effect on. If you take this feat, you add the Draconic Bloodline spells to your spell list. And so yeah, the whole list is on the screen right over there, but these are the spells that Draconic Bloodline Sorcerers get automatically. Why this is only useful for kobolds is because barbarians don't have spell slots, so they can't even take this feat. But if you were something like a kobold druid or a kobold cleric, you could get these spells automatically, some of which would not be available in your spell list. So that's pretty cool, but otherwise not usable. Like, again, sorcerers gain nothing from this, barbarians can't use it, so this feat is strictly for kobolds. The other level 4 feat is Scales of the Dragon, which is pretty decent protection. While unarmored, you gain a flat +2 to armor class with a +2 dexterity limit. So not super useful compared to normal armor, but if you're something like a sorcerer or something that can't wear armor with a low dexterity score, it's a pretty solid way of protecting yourself. At level 4, if you're trained and unarmored, you'll still have an armor class of 20, which isn't bad. Also, your resistance from the dedication, instead of just half your level, increases to 3 plus half your level. So a little more damage resistance. Pretty good defensive option. Breath of the Dragon. You get Dragon Breath and a focus point. Same as a sorcerer. Wings of the Dragon. You get Dragon Wings and a focus point. Same as a sorcerer. Shape of the Dragon. You get... Okay, I'm done. This is actually not a focus spell. You get a once per day ability to cast the 7th level spell, Dragon Form. This does not use a focus point. This does not use a spell slot. You can just shapeshift into a dragon once per day. And at 16th and 18th level, it gets automatically heightened to the 8th and 9th level version of the transformation. This is a really good feature, and probably what most people take the dedication for. But also, while in dragon form, if you ever land a critical hit, your Dragon Breath weapon automatically recharges. Really good. Disciple's Breath can be taken by sorcerers without the Breath of the Dragon feat from earlier, but if you're not a sorcerer, you do need to take that feat as a prerequisite, and you can, instead of spending a focus point on Dragon Breath, just use Dragon Breath. It will always deal 9d6 damage instead of whatever it would be heightened to at your current level. And like I said, it doesn't cost a focus point, but you can't use Disciple's Breath again for 1d4 rounds. This is a really good feat because even if you have no focus point, potentially every 2 rounds or as slow as every 5 rounds, which is a long time, you get a free Dragon Breath for 2 actions for 9d6. It's level 16, so it's not incredible, but that's still stronger than a fireball in a cone in front of you. Never going to be a bad thing. And the final Dragon Disciple feat at level 18 is Mighty Dragon Shape. It's super simple. Instead of transforming into a dragon once per day, you can now do it once per hour. So basically, at this point, every combat, you're going full dragon mode. There's really nothing else you would choose to do. It's absolutely amazing. Honestly, my final thoughts are that you get exactly what you think you would from the Dragon Disciple. You slowly grow more and more like a dragon until you can turn into a dragon. I think it's definitely most beneficial for kobolds, and there's not a whole lot here for barbarians, though I think you can still rage and get your instinct bonuses while in form of the dragon, shape of the dragon, whatever it's called. So if that's the case and you can rage while in dragon form, that is super powerful, and you could probably play a very effective melee dragon, which could be fun. But like I said, a lot of this, great for kobolds. Draconic sorcerers kind of lose a lot of the features from this, but again, you don't have to take all of them. Some of the feats available here are just stuff the sorcerers get automatically, so you can sort of just skip those and take other feats or maybe other dedications if you want. But that is all I have time for here today. That is the next 6 archetypes. Let me know what you guys thought in the description. Yes, please let me know in the description. Let me know in the comments what you think of these archetypes, which ones you like, which ones you didn't. Do you plan to play any of these? If you do, tell me all about your character and how you're going to play them. I'm really excited. I want to hear about your goblin, dragon barbarian, dragon disciple. That could actually be kind of fun. But please, let me know what you're playing in the comments. If you're interested, there are links in the description to my Discord, my Twitter, and my Patreon, which you can pledge to get some unique bonuses, including shoutouts, which is why I'm going to be shouting out Quidthulu, Paul Rand, Troy Hughes, and the rest of my fantastic patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next time, no nat ones.